Now let us understand one more very important part of functions, and that is how we can work with variable arguments and variable keyword arguments. Let me create a file over here and let me name it as arguments and keyword arguments. That means args and kwargs for short. Let me put up some comments. The first thing that I want to show you inside this program is all about unpacking. First, we will see how we can unpack a couple of data structures in Python. And once we understand unpacking, then we can move to the variable and the keyword variable arguments. So the first thing that I want to show you is all about unpacking. Suppose you have a tuple like this, Louis and Zappa. You can unpack the values of this tuple in a single line. So on the left, I can say that my Louis would be my first name, so I can write fname, and Zappa would be my last name, so I can say lname, and that's it. This is called as tuple unpacking. Louis would be assigned to this variable and Zappa would be assigned to this variable. Just to confirm, let us print out the values and see what we are getting. And you can see we are getting the right values. Now let's see how we can unpack a list. Suppose you have a list like this and I want to unpack this list. But while unpacking, I only want the first value inside a variable and I want all of the rest into a separate list. We can do this by using a special syntax. So I can say first, then I can say star, rest of the values is equal to my list. So let's see what's happening. The first value, that means CC, is assigned to this variable and Rocco, Chico and Nico inside a list is being assigned to this variable. You can name the variables whatever you want. Let's try to print out the value and check if we are getting the right output or not. Let me run the file and here you can check the output. Let me take it up. The first value is CC and that's what we are getting right over here. Rest is a list of all of the remaining values, Rocco, Chico and Nico. That's what we have right over here. Next, let us see how we can unpack a dictionary. Suppose we have an existing dictionary like this. So this is for specifications, type is dynamic, optional static typing, and it is found everywhere. Let us create a new dictionary and let us try to unpack the existing dictionary into it. So let me call the new variable as lang and I can say name is Python. Now I can unpack the entire dictionary right over here by using a very special syntax. So I can say star star followed by the name of the dictionary that we want to unpack. So the name of the dictionary is specs. That's it. Let us print it out and see what we are getting. And as you can see, we have the right dictionary. So the name is Python. And here you can see we have unpacked the entire other dictionary as well. Now let's go back to our program. Now let's try to think of a situation where we would use this functionality. Suppose we have a function and this function has to accept a known number of arguments. At that time, we can use this functionality. Now suppose we have a function called as unknown friends and we don't know the number of friends that we are going to get in the arguments. So here I can say that we are going to receive variable argument and that variable argument I can declare by writing star and the name of the variable. As a convention, whenever we are getting variable arguments, we name that variable as args. Now let's go to the body and see what we can do with this one. Let's try to simply print out the values. So I can say for my friend in my arguments, I simply want to print out my friend. Oh, it has to be friend, not friends. So this looks good. Now let's see how we can add types to this function. By default, Python is going to pack all of the variable arguments inside a tuple. So essentially what's happening is this argument is going to be of the type of tuple. And since this function is not returning anything, this is going to return none. Let us invoke this function on the next line. So I can say my unknown friends, and here let me pass a couple of friends. So I am passing an unknown number of friends. Now adding type hint to this variable, it's a little tricky because by default args is a tuple, but we can say this tuple is of the type of string, and that's it. This is how we would add type hints to our variable arguments. This simply means that our variable of args is a tuple and the data type inside the tuple is of the type of string. Let us try to save this file and let me try to run it, and we have the right output. We can see all of the friends right over here. So all of these friends are coming from this line right over here, line number 33. Now similarly, we can also accept keyword arguments. Now what do you mean by a keyword argument? First, let me write the program and then I will explain what exactly I mean by a keyword argument. So let me put up a comment. So suppose we have a function called as unknown product, and this function accepts a variable keyword arguments. So that can be denoted by 2 stars, and by convention we always name the variable as kwargs. That means keyword arguments. Now let's see what we can do inside the body of this function. Now what Python is going to do is it is going to pack all of the keyword arguments in the form of a dictionary. So we can simply print out the key and the value from our keyword args dot items, and let us print it out. I can also write this in a short form, v for value and k for the key, and here I can simply say I want to print out my key and my value. Now let me try to invoke this function by passing keyword arguments. So this is the place where all of the things are going to get cleared. So I can say my unknown product, and the keyword arguments would look something like this. Name is equal to pizza, price is equal to 3.99, topping is equal to olives, and so on. So you can see all of the arguments are in the form of the key and the value, the key and the value. So that's why we call this variable as a variable keyword argument. By default, it's always going to be in a form of a dictionary. Now let's see how we can add types to this one. Now adding types for this one is really very tricky. If you see our keyword arguments, the first one is a string, the next one is a float, the last one is a boolean. So we don't know what kind of argument we can get inside the dictionary. So this time what we can say that the values can be anything. So I can write the type as any, and let me import any from our typing library. So on the top I can say from typing I want to import any. So what this really means is, since we don't know the value of the type of the dictionary, we are going to accept any kind of a value. And since this function is not going to return anything, we can say that the return type is none. Let's try to run our program, and here is the output. Let me just take it up. So for the variable keyword arguments, we have name, price, toppings, and extra cheese, and that is what we have right over here. Now let's see how we can combine both of these concepts together. That means let us combine the variable arguments and the variable keyword arguments in a single function. So let me put up a comment over here. Suppose I have a function called as invoice, wherein I am supposed to generate an invoice for a product, but I don't know what is the product. I don't know the characteristics of the product. Then how do I handle this situation? So let's see how we can define the function. The first argument can be the name of the product. So I can simply write as product. The type is going to be a string. After that, since we don't know what the product is all about or the different varieties of the product, we can simply write that we can also accept a variable argument right over here. Now suppose the user gives an argument in the form of keywords. We can handle that situation as well by using our keyword argument. So we can say double star keyword and args. And this time let us simply print out our product arguments and our keyword arguments. So I can say I want to print out my product. Let me copy and paste. Then I want to print out my arguments. Then I want to print out my keyword arguments. Now since this function is not going to return anything, so I can say that it's going to return none. Now let's try to invoke this function. So let me go down over here. I can say invoice. My product could be sneakers. Now suppose the sneakers are available in black and white color, so I can give a variable number of arguments. So I can say black and white. We can also define a couple of keyword arguments over here. Suppose we know the name of the brand, so we can say my brand is equal to, maybe it's Nike. The category would be my Air Jordans. Price could be $899.99. In stock would be a boolean value, and let me assign it a value of false. The sneakers are not in stock. Let me save my file. So as you can see, my formatter, which is black, it automatically formats my file. Now let me save the file and let me run it for the last time. And here we have the output. So let me just take this down. The product is our sneakers. So that's what we are getting over here. Now this arguments, by default, this is going to be a tuple. So that's why we have a tuple over here. And the keyword arguments, this is always going to be packed as a dictionary. So that's why we have the last line as a dictionary.